Hello everybody, welcome. Today I am going live with Isabelle Obert, who is a registered nutritionist supporting Zita West Supplements. She has consulted with me personally and helped me achieve my goals when TTC and on my IVF journeys. So I have great respect and fond memories of working with Isabelle, and she will be talking about fertility nutrition at every stage from TTC to IVF, age 35, more and more, as well as couples baseline and what you can do individually to support. So I'm going to welcome her in now and we can go live. Hi to everyone joining, nice to see you. Do you have your questions ready? All about fertility nutrition. Hi, Isabelle.
Hi, Eloise. How are you?
I'm good, thank you. How are you?
I'm very well, thank you. Very well indeed. Lovely to see you again.
You too. It's been a while, but I've just been
a long time.
A brief introduction and saying that you have helped me on a personal level in the past. So for that, I'm very, very grateful. So please do introduce yourself.
So I'm Isabelle Obert, and I am a fertility nutritionist, and I've worked at the Zita West Clinic, but with IVF and fertility for nearly 20 years now, so quite some time. That ages me a lot, but anyway, there we go.
And we are going to be talking about products and how they can benefit people at different stages. So really, I'd like to start by asking, if people are building out a supplement regime, as a couple, what's a good baseline to aim for? What should we both look to take and include in that regime, and when should we start it?
So the absolute baseline, I guess, if you are starting out, as far as we know there's no issues, would be a really good multivitamin formula with including vitamin D and omega-3. Those would be the baselines. So like VitaFem and Vitamin from the Zita West range, with Vital DHA as the omega-3. We also have a couple sort of foundation fertility bundles, which include probiotics, and there's a male and a female one. The female one's designed to support the uterine and the vaginal microbiome, and the male one to support the male microbiome, because there is a seminal microbiome, as it happens, and that often gets the microbiome often gets overlooked, and particularly with sort of antibiotics, all sorts of things going on, it can be a really helpful addition. But specifically a good multivitamin and an omega-3, and in an ideal world, we would always start about 3 months before trying to conceive, if you like. The maturation cycle of an egg and sperm is roughly 2.5 to 3 months. But you know what? It's never too late. I mean, if you decided that you wanted to start trying to conceive in a month's time, and you start now, it doesn't matter. But, you know, get in there if you can, because with this modern day, the modern food, you know, food farming and everything like that, do we get everything we need from food? I'm not convinced, I have to say.
Yeah. Exactly. And as I mentioned, you helped me earlier last year when I went back after a break to do IVF again. And so there are products from the Zita West range that I have been taking for a long time now and continue to take in pregnancy. So for those who want to check out what we're talking about, please do head to our link in bio, and you can get 10% off the range with code TRB10, which is an amazing opportunity. Vitamin D is important, obviously, and at the moment there's lack of light, lack of sunshine in the UK. It's pretty miserable. So would you suggest people get their vitamin D levels checked before they start taking it?
Look, in an ideal world, the difficult thing is you can't really dose somebody without knowing where their vitamin D is at, and your vitamin D is likely to be lower at different times of year. You're absolutely right, Louise. This time of year when it's miserable and we're inside. But you know what? Even in the summer, realistically, we should be frolicking naked in the sunshine. We'd all be arrested. And anyway, the moment we're out there, people go, oh, you must put factor 50 on, otherwise you're going to get cancer and wrinkles, which is, by the way, I'm not looking, that's absolutely a must. But it means you can't produce vitamin D in your skin. So vitamin D sort of remains important all year round. So there are safe, theoretically safe, long-term sort of doses of vitamin D, but it is fat soluble. So it gets stores in the fat cells, which means it can build up in the system. So it's not appropriate to take the same dose in the winter as it is in the summer, year in, year out, without a break. So yes, in an ideal world, and there are specific groups of people that may be lower in vitamin D. So one is obviously depending on your skin tone. If your skin tone is darker, you may be more likely to need vitamin D. But if you've got PCOS, as an example, 90-something% of women with PCOS and endometriosis tend to be vitamin D deficient. So there are certain groups that also, there might be red flags.
Yeah.
And thyroid, actually. That's another one. Yeah. Thyroid issues are often linked with low vitamin D.
Could you
And
take...
potentially low AMH. Sorry, I'm throwing things at you.
Could you take too much of it?
Yes. Yeah. You can take too much. You actually have to take a lot of vitamin D for several months for it to be toxic. Right. But equally, you can take a dose which is like 4,000 I use, for example, which a lot of people just take because you can buy that very easily. Yeah. Taking that just forever, I don't think is the answer. It can build up, and I have seen people, vitamin D go too high, and you know, too much of a good thing can become a bad thing. You know, there is moderation, and sometimes less is more. The good thing is, I would always recommend, you know, if you didn't want to be tested, for instance, or you thought, well, I haven't taken vitamin D and it's winter and I'm sure I'm low, taking a slightly higher dose for a couple of months and then reducing it. Yeah. You know, that's the sort of a safe approach often.
Absolutely. Anything else in terms of baseline to get those foundations laid, especially if you're over 35, for example?
Well, yes, of course. I mean, folate. So folate is the active form of folic acid. So everybody's heard of folic acid, and that is what is recommended by the NHS, etc., when you're trying to conceive when you're pregnant. Folic acid is synthetic. Folate is the natural active form that's found in food, and I'm always much keener on people, if I take supplements, to take supplements with folate rather than folic acid, because it's much more easily absorbed. And folate requires B12 in order to enter the cells, and B6. Yep. So I'm never keen on a standalone, just taking folate or folic acid. You're always better to take a complex. But folate is as important for a man as it is for a woman. Really important. So a good multivitamin. The other thing would be for a woman, you know, selenium, zinc. For a woman, particularly iodine. So most good complexes will contain all of these things. If you're over 35, you're right. Then as we get older, potentially our egg quality might be affected. So increasing your antioxidant intake is really important. Obviously, you can do that via food, but also via supplements. So for instance, from the Zita West range, we've got the VitaFem and the Vitamin Boost. Male fertility also does diminish. I mean, men, we know, can father children for a very long time, but actually, although male fertility does tend to diminish sort of later than females, we're still looking at in 40s, early to mid 40s, it to start declining, and potentially before that if lifestyle isn't great. So antioxidants, we know, are super important for sperm quality. There's been tons of study done of sperm, of course. So an antioxidant complex could be useful for both. And we also have standalone antioxidants such as ubiquinol, which is the active form of CoQ10. CoQ10 is a potent antioxidant, which is great for egg quality, particularly important, great for sperm as well, by the way, particularly important when going through IVF, because not only is it an antioxidant that helps with egg quality, it also is an energy provider. And obviously in IVF, the aim is to produce several eggs. And as the egg is the largest single cell in the female body, you need a lot of energy to produce an egg. So to produce several, you need even more energy. So this helps with the maturation, it's thought. So that's a really useful antioxidant, in my opinion. And NAC is another really useful one too. It's potent antioxidant, again being studied with male fertility and male DNA fragmentation in the sperm. For females, it's good for egg quality. It's been studied with a recurrent miscarriage. You know, there are things that can be really helpful potentially, if one is wanting to sort of potentially tick as many boxes as you can, which a lot of people want to do, you know.
Absolutely. Folate is an interesting one because I started taking that from the Zita West range, again linked in bio, from the beginning of last year, before I went back into IVF, and I've continued to take it whilst I've been pregnant, even now in my 3rd trimester with twins, because
well, you need more when you've got twins, actually.
Exactly.
So you're right to have done that, yeah.
Exactly. So it's actually really interesting to see how some of these supplements, you know, it's not like a hard stop. They're needed on a continuous journey.
Yeah. And actually, you're right, Eloise, because a lot of, again, the NHS often are told to take folic acid from whatever, folate, for the first trimester only. But that's not, that you're right, that's not the case. You actually need it. I mean, folate is required alongside B6 and B12, for instance, to break down something called homocysteine, which is an inflammatory metabolite, if you like. And inflammation's not so great, you know, when you're pregnant, when you're not pregnant. So actually, and it's required, you know, for continuing fetal development as well. So you're absolutely right. You shouldn't stop. I think it's something that you should take throughout, really. If you can, I think it would be a good idea. Yeah.
Is that the case with multiples generally, that you should be potentially taking a little higher dosage of things if you're having?
Yeah, well, certainly the folate, I would always recommend pretty much doubling it during the first trimester anyway, but always taking a bit more. Omega-3 if you're not on blood thinners and things. Again, you've got three brains. You've got your brain, which hopefully has not gone to mush, it doesn't seem like it, and the two babies' brains. And actually there is, you know, it's really important, and it's difficult because of course you're told, well, you can't have more than 2 portions of oily fish a week. So when do you get your omega-3? Very difficult.
Exactly. We just had a question come in, if I could ask you live, and then we'll get back to what we were about to discuss. I'm just trying to find it. I don't know if you can see it there. It was about it was about taking 2 supplements at the same time. I'm just finding it now. Can you take CoQ10 alongside Impril?
Yeah. Yes. I believe you can. The people at Impril say you shouldn't.
Right.
But I'm not quite sure what that is a question for them as to what their reasoning is behind that. But they're saying one doesn't need extra. CoQ10 is not a vitamin, of course. It is it's an energy provider. It's produced. We all produce it in every cell in the body. It's part of the energy production process right in the heart of the nucleus of the cell. So it is a different being, if you like. Personally, I think you can, but I think that's a question for Impril.
Okay. Good to know, thank you. Someone's just asked privately, do you recommend different supplements for those on a donor egg journey rather than those using their own eggs?
Well, on the donor egg journey, obviously the male, you know, assuming the sperm that's been used is not frozen, if it's fresh sperm, you know, then that's very important. Yes, what you don't need is supplements that are designed to target egg quality. So what you're looking at is the uterine environment. So actually the vaginal and uterine microbiome becomes super important. Well, it's always important, but that's really important. And blood flow is really important. So there are certain nutrients that are helpful for blood flow, but things that are important for implantation, vitamin E is important, selenium, folate again, beta carotene. So again, you are looking at, and also the moment that you have that embryo transferred, hopefully you have to, you know, treat yourself as if you're pregnant. So you know, it's really important, in my opinion, also to build up your stores prior to conception. So the folate, the vitamin D is very important for implantation. They've actually done studies with women having donor eggs, and the recipients higher in vitamin D are more likely to get pregnant. So we know that certain things can be really helpful. So what we're taking away is potentially nutrients that are specifically designed to support egg quality. Having said that, CoQ10 is good for blood flow, so it may also be helpful for implantation. So, you know,
which is a good question, because it's the same with a FET, isn't it? A frozen embryo transfer. If you've already got this,
absolutely the same, exactly the same. There's no difference really in that, you know, because the embryo is thawed, so you've still got a live embryo either way. The thing, we're looking at the environment, which is really important. But the nutrient stores, you don't want to be starting to take folate the day before transfer, as an example, because if your levels are low, that may affect implantation, and it may be linked with miscarriage. So you know, we tend to build up stores in our systems. It's really important to prepare also for a frozen transfer or for a donor transfer, I think. Maybe not for 3 months.
And baseline for men, how important is that?
As I said, folate, just as important for a man as for a woman. So folate deficiency in a man, potentially linked with miscarriage, as an example. And of course, we know that folate requires B12 and B6 to water the cell. So again, you've got your you know, you've got vitamin D, again, really important for sperm DNA fragmentation. You know, selenium, important, you know, a really potent antioxidant. It's important for sperm quality and motility. Beta carotene, I mean, all these nutrients really important male fertility. And omega-3, DHA is concentrated in the sperm head. It's also really important for the motility of the sperm. So there are other nutrients as well, of course, that we know are important for sperm quality. So for men, it's just as important, actually, because what the semen analysis doesn't tell you, unless you go to a DNA fragmentation, is what the quality is. You can see what they look like, how fast they're swimming, which direction they're going in. Still doesn't tell you what it looks like inside. And in the end, the aim of the sperm is, that's why it has to be a certain shape, is to enter the egg and to discharge its contents.
So a question's just come in. What would you recommend for sperm DNA fragmentation?
Realistically, there's a lifestyle, obviously, the lifestyle. So it's and including the obvious sort of tight pants, going to the gym, too much saunas, the heat thing, the sort of chemicals in food. That's a big one. Things like Diet Coke. People think, oh, Diet Coke's fine. That's really bad for sperm, for example. But the caffeine, the alcohol, so poor food. There's those which will also be linked with DNA fragmentation. But potentially the treatment for high DNA frag is increased antioxidant intake. So they've done studies with reasonably high doses of vitamin C and vitamin E together, for instance. But vitamin D, folate can reduce DNA fragmentation. NAC, I mentioned NAC a bit earlier on.
Yes.
That has been studied with reducing sperm DNA fragmentation, as has inositol, actually, interestingly enough. CoQ10 as well, they think, potentially can be really helpful. So again, it's increasing your antioxidant intake, it's tidying up your lifestyle. And, that's really, really important, actually.
Absolutely.
So reducing saturated fats as well.
So as I mentioned to those who may have just joined, for those who have just joined, I've taken a fair amount of these supplements myself.
I know you're rattling.
For last year's IVF, and I'm pregnant now. So if you head to our link in bio, you can find out more about the products available and also use the discount TRB10 for 10% off the range. Let's talk a little bit about nutrition, because obviously that's key as well. It's not just about taking some supplements and then hoping for, eating badly alongside it.
Completely.
As in it doesn't counteract it. But alongside the sort of fantastic supplement backdrop, what would you aim for diet-wise on a day-to-day basis, nutritionally, that's kind of, that you can keep up without overdoing it?
Absolutely. And I think that's the key, actually. You don't want to be so strict that you sort of stress yourself out of, with that. So essentially, you're looking at the Mediterranean diet, which I think everybody knows about the Mediterranean diet. And we all know that it's linked with lower incidences of heart diseases and certain cancers, and it's anti-inflammatory. So we've got all of those benefits. So Mediterranean style diet, if you like, rather than the Mediterranean diet, because there are a lot of different people who eat food from different cultures. It doesn't have to be you eating a Greek salad every day, of course, but it can be. So the ethics, if you like, of a Mediterranean diet are higher in whole grains, reduced refined carbs, low levels of processed foods, good quality protein, but not too much saturated fat. So limited amounts of, say, red meat and high saturated, high fat dairy as well. Fish, obviously. If you're not a fish eater, then fair enough. But pulses, so fiber is important. Lots of olive oil, nuts and seeds, lots of brightly coloured fruit and vegetables. It's very colourful, and this is one of the keys, I think. So it's eating colour. I always say to people, try and include protein and colour every time you eat. The protein, which provides the building blocks. So a higher protein diet is required for both male and female, and again for the woman going through IVF, even higher protein. But essentially, eggs and sperm are created from protein. So if you're just living on sort of toast and marmalade, that's not going to give you enough protein. You need to have enough protein. It also helps with hormone balance and colour. And when I say colour, I mean fruit and veg, but always more veg than fruit. So lots of colourful foods. Eating seasonally if we can, because obviously the more seasonally we eat, the fresher our veg as well. You want to try and eat things that are fresh from, rather than being sitting in a plane or they soaked in a sort of solution to keep it fresh for 5 weeks. Well, that kind of thing. So
absolutely,
if we eat seasonally, that helps with that as well.
People talk about eating the colours of the rainbow, don't they?
Rainbow colours. I always say try and have something green and leafy every day if you can. You've got your folate. That's one of the reasons, actually, the Mediterranean diet is linked with higher pregnancy rates. There are higher folate levels in the bloodstream with the Mediterranean diet, both male and female, and we've just discussed how important folate is. So dark green leafy veg is your friend for folate, as are things like nuts and seeds and pulses as well. So beans, lentils and chickpeas. I know not everybody loves them, but they are great sort of inclusion if you can have them. And it also often reduces the meat content as well, because you can play around with that, which is a really good idea.
Absolutely. And if someone finds it hard to stomach some of these
Don't
things,
eat
can they blend?
what you don't
Can
like.
they can they blend them in a smoothie?
Yes. Don't, yeah, better not to have just the juice, because you need the fiber actually. Yes, I mean, I would always prefer to drink my drink benefits rather than not eat them at all, if that makes it, not consume them at all. But don't just rely on smoothies, because smoothies often, just by their very nature, end up having too much sugar in them.
Right.
Got to be a little bit careful with that, with the sugar spikes, but it does break down the fibers a little bit. So for instance, if you have something like endometriosis, and a high fiber diet is really recommended, because it will, but the fiber binds with excess estrogens, which is often a problem, so you can get them out of the system. Yeah, exactly. And by only having smoothies and things, you don't get that benefit of the fiber.
Yeah, absolutely. I mentioned the baseline, which I was looking at, and a lot of people will be looking at as well. So for a fresh egg retrieval, which I did at 38, taking the ultimate IVF support pack. So please, could you tell us a little bit more about what's included in that pack, and how it's being considered for people who are trying to conceive, who are looking to enhance egg quality, for example?
Of course. So the ultimate either egg health pack or the ultimate IVF support pack will contain the baseline. So our baseline would be, so we're talking about the female one here, the VitaFem, which is our multivitamin preconception, which has got all the things like folate and the B vitamins, and the not estrogen, obviously iodine and zinc and selenium. So that's a good multivitamin. Alongside it's got VitaFem Boost, which is the antioxidant complex. So as we said, particularly if we are a little bit older, or if we're going through IVF, our nutritional requirements are higher. We normally ovulate with 1 egg. If you're ovulating with 16 eggs, 23 eggs, that's a big difference. So it's your protein requirements are high, but actually your nutrient requirements are higher. So having some extra antioxidant support is really helpful. The DHA, which is our omega-3, and actually women who have higher levels of omega-3, there is a higher chance of pregnancy. There's definitely links. There's been studies done, and we know that omega-3 is important. It may help to delay ovarian aging, but it's important for egg quality, and it's anti-inflammatory. Again, we've got that, and it's good for blood flow. So those are the sort of almost like the basics. Then there is our inositol and folate, which so inositol is very much recommended for women with PCOS, but as it happens, myo-inositol is found in the follicular fluid, so it may help with egg maturation. So actually, even if you haven't got PCOS, it may be helpful through an IVF cycle to improve egg quality. And actually the extra folate in there, in my opinion, is always quite helpful, because I'm not sure that we always get enough folate, and sometimes a little bit of extra can be useful. We've then got the Kanika ubiquinol. So CoQ10 is, as we discussed, great for egg quality, and also for the actual energy production for helping egg maturation. And we use the ubiquinol, which is the body active form. So the body will convert it, but actually as we get a bit older as well, our conversion becomes less efficient. So why not take something that the body can use automatically, because then you don't waste it, if you like, and you don't waste it converting it. So that's really helpful. And the other things in the so we've got vitamin D obviously in the pack as well, because vitamin D, there is vitamin D in the VitaFem. In the winter months, I'm not sure that's just enough. I think you need to take more. And there are people who don't get out in the sun, even in the summer, or they really cover up because they've got very fair skin, or they don't want to go brown, So that extra vitamin D can be useful and is really important for egg quality and implantation. And then we've got FemC, which is the probiotic specifically designed to support the uterine and the vaginal microbiome, which may help improve the chances of implantation, reduce the risk of miscarriage. And there is a lot of study being done on the microbiome at the moment, the gut one as well, but also the vaginal one, and particularly with recurrent IVF failure and things, I think it could be a really important place to sort of consider, if you like. And the psyllium husk is our fiber supplement, which is designed to feed the beneficial bacteria. Now, if you're following a high fiber diet, or you feel you've got enough fiber, you may not need it, or even just you have a very low, just 1 a day of it or something. And there are people who maybe are a little bit more constipated, who find digestion a little difficult, particularly when they're put on progesterone. Then you could increase the fiber a little bit, but it helps support that beneficial bacteria and give you the best out of it.
I honestly, I take it religiously every day, even now, and I notice when I haven't taken it, because I do get clogged out.
that's a very, you know, constipation is a big pregnancy symptom, isn't it? You know, so actually, and you don't, well, you know, you don't want to go into graphics, but you don't particularly want to strain too much. You've got the whole, you know, pile sort of potentials, and it's uncomfortable, and so anything you can do which is safe in pregnancy, which it is, of course, to help. And there isn't a specific dose. I think it's dependent on you, isn't it? Then there are probably certain days that you might need more than others or less than others, but it's really helpful.
Completely agreed. And anything else that you would recommend for couples, so supporting men and women over 35 that we haven't just mentioned? I know you mentioned NAC or NAC, which was introduced to the range last year. Is that right?
Yeah, it was. I'm very fond of it, actually. I use it a lot. Use it myself. It's great for liver support, and it's a really good antioxidant as you get older, you know. But from a fertility perspective, it's, you know, that there is more study done on male fertility. There isn't actually a test for egg quality, to be fair, but you know, we can test for sperm, and we know that it improves DNA fragmentation. My opinion is got to do the same in the female, but it's a potent antioxidant. I often recommend it for women over 35, particularly late 30s and early 40s, and particularly also it's been studied with, it's very anti-inflammatory. So it can, so in endometriosis, it's great. It's got benefits. It's been studied with endometriosis, and also with PCOS. Actually, it can help with hormone balance. So it can help reduce sort of testosterone levels and things. But it's also been studied with recurrent miscarriage. So often something I recommend, and I say, you know, continue taking it even after transfer, potentially even for the first trimester. Actually, there's quite a bit of study done on it. So it's a really it's an easy thing to take. It's generally very well tolerated. You know, like with everything, some things don't suit people, but on the whole, it's really well tolerated. But it's a nice antioxidant to take, actually. Yeah, it's got a lot of benefits.
Great. Obviously, with the cost of living, etc., it's really hard to always afford to be able to eat organic, for example. So what would be your kind of live food hacks for navigating a healthy lifestyle?
So in an ideal world, of course, we'd all eat organic. Of course we would. Why would we put chemicals in our food? There are some foods that tend to be more sprayed than others. So there's what's called the Dirty Dozen and the Clean 15, which you can look up very easily online, and it gives you potentially that the you know, tends to be like berries and sort of cherry tomatoes, and there are certain, you know, lettuce and things. There are certain foods that maybe have a higher what's called chemical residue than others. If one can afford to go to go organic with those, great. Otherwise, you can wash with a solution of sort of slightly acidic, with a bit of literally bicarbonate of soda and some lemon juice or something like that. Which can help, you know, get rid of the some of the chemicals. Certainly, with the Clean 15, there are certain foods that are less likely to be sort of have a lot of chemical residue. So I personally don't buy those organic. You know, I'm quite happy to buy those non-organic. And you know, where I think my opinion is still this, though: if you can wash your food, great. I'd rather buy organic where I can, if it's available, if it's not silly prices. But I'd rather eat a big variety of veg, even if it's not organic, than just sticking to organic, because you still get the benefits. You do still get the benefits. And interestingly enough, actually, the NAC or the NAC is great for liver support. So the better your liver can be functioning, the more it will detoxify you anyway. So that's a sort of good point as well. But yes, I think, and eating more plant-based, you know, keeping your sort of meats and things to smaller amounts of better quality, and then using, you know, larger amounts of sort of pulses and things like that to get your protein in, and fiber, which is obviously much more economical. So, you know, and we should all eat like that, really. We don't need to eat tons of meat.
Yeah. You mentioned on this before, and I just want to ask you about it before we finish. But for those who might be struggling with PCOS, particular Zita West supplements to support that, such as inositol.
Definitely inositol, absolutely. Right. I mean, that's always, if somebody said I can only do one thing, I would do the inositol and folate. The inositol it's myo-inositol, and it has been studied alongside folate, which is why the folate's in there. but it's 200 micrograms of folate. So realistically, in an ideal world, you would put a multivitamin on top of that as well, because as we discussed, you know, the folate requires other things, you know, to function. And so I would, you know, if one, I would always go down the VitaFem route, always, if possible, but I would add the inositol and folate on top of that. If one could do more, the NAC is great for PCOS. It has been studied and it works quite well alongside inositol, which, and both of them work for reducing blood sugar levels, you know, helping with, it helps insulin sensitivity, it reduces potentially free testosterone. The omega-3 is anti-inflammatory because there is a degree of inflammation involved with PCOS. And the CoQ10 as well, the ubiquinol, which is also thought to help with hormone function as well as with egg quality. So it's anti-inflammatory. Okay. So, and vitamin D, because a very high percentage of women with vitamin D. But, you know, you can pick and choose. If somebody said I can only have one of those, you know, I'm happy to do a multivitamin, but I would probably go for inositol first, as well as the multivitamin, and make sure that there is vitamin D going on in there.
So what's the difference with the Zita West range between the VitaFem and the VitaFem Boost, for example?
So the VitaFem is a multivitamin formula, which has got all the things that you need preconceptually, and it sort of morphs, if you like. We change it into the Vital Essence through the pregnancy range. So those are the multivitamins, which have got all the important nutrients, the folate as recommended by the NHS. It's got good amounts of vitamin D, better than most multivitamins, to be fair, plus the other things that are important. The VitaFem Boost is not a standalone multivitamin. It doesn't contain folate. So it's an antioxidant support. So it would not be appropriate on its own without the VitaFem or without a multivitamin, because it doesn't have the folate in. But it's like an enhancement of antioxidants to help sort of support egg quality, liver detoxification, you know, really where maybe an extra antioxidant support is needed.
Makes complete sense. This has been so interesting, so thorough as always. Thank you so much, Isabelle. And as I said, to anyone who wants to find out more about supplements to support them at any stage of your journey, please do head to what? Sorry.
Absolutely. Any, you know, because you can do it at every stage.
Exactly. There is literally the right supplements for each individual sort of tailored journey. Then please head to our link in bio. You can use the discount code TRB10, which will get you 10% off the entire range, which is amazing. And please do send or DM any questions you have for the team at Zita West about the supplements and about supporting, you know, fertility and pregnancy. So the whole range. We have had some questions which we probably don't have time for now, but please do feel free to message the team or us if you would like to be put in touch. So thank you very much, Isabelle.
It's my pleasure. It's lovely to see you, and hopefully see you again soon.
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay.
Thanks, everyone. Bye-bye. Bye.